boxing training for beginners. So if you're just getting started in boxing, the very first thing you need to understand is don't go too fast right now so that you can go far later. And what I mean by that is if you're just getting started and you don't know much about boxing, but you maybe want to box someday competitively, or maybe not. You just want to get into boxing and learn how to box and use it for the boxing fitness benefits. Either path you take there, you want to develop good, solid fundamentals to begin with. And if you go really fast and you start learning all these different punches and different combinations, I promise you're going to be doing it wrong. You're going to pick up really, really bad habits early. And if you do become a competitive boxer, that's going to hurt you later. So you want to lay the foundation down now and learn the proper fundamentals. And that's what this program is going to help you develop, is proper fundamentals. We're going to build a solid foundation. We're going to build that foundation and get you started off right so that then we can build from there and you can develop your skills and you'll go far with these fundamentals. So to begin with, we're going to start with your stance. So the stance, the basic stance that I teach is called Hex. Hex, H-E-C-K-S. Hex stands for, it's an acronym, hands high. You want your hands high. You want to look over your gloves. If you do this, if you're inside fighting, yeah, we could do this and block punches, and you'll see some guys doing that. But you can't see shots coming in. You don't want to take away your vision, so we want those hands high, protecting the chin, protecting the mouth, right underneath your eyeballs. And let me just share one other thing here with you first. If you haven't ever seen my boxing video on Spectrum of Styles, then I just need to fill you in first. So this stance that I'm teaching you is for if you're fighting what we call mid-range. So you're mid-range fighting, okay? You're in range to be hit or to land your shots, okay? Or if you're pressing a guy, you're coming forward, you're being an aggressor, we definitely want the hands high. That's when we would actually put that helmet on and come in with our hands even higher if we're really, really aggressive coming in like that. If we're outside on the perimeter of the ring boxing, then we could have our hands farther away from us, okay? But either way, we want the hands up. We want the chin protected. We don't want to give an open shot, especially if I'm mid-range and you're going to get hit there. So this basic stance is going to help you avoid that. So hands high, that stands for hands high. H-E is elbows in. You want your elbows in. I mean, who would you rather fight? This guy or this guy? Who's better protected? And I don't want you to be tight here. Just in. Rest them right on your chest. Hands high, elbows in. C is for your chin down. Should never have your chin up. Your chin should be down. It doesn't need to be pinned against your chest, but it needs to be low. Okay? So this guy is protected. Okay? K is for knees. Your knees should be bent. So your knees are bent. When you're in here, you're bent. And S is for shifting your weight on the balls of your feet. You want to shift your weight on the balls of your feet. Get used to shifting that weight. When we get into punching, you're going to learn that punching is about transference of weight. So when we transfer weight, that's how we add power to our punches. And it comes from the floor. We dig through the legs. It comes up through the hips, through the shoulders. And on the end is our shot, right? But that all comes from knowing how to shift our weight. So when we start as a beginner, we're just going to learn how to shift our weight and keep that stance up, that Hex Boxing Stance. And what you can do is just get in front of a mirror. Notice, are my elbows in? Are my hands high, right? Hands high, elbows in. Is my chin up or is my chin down, right? Are my knees bent? And am I shifting my weight on the balls of my feet? And so you're going to practice that. That's called Hex. You're not even going to throw a punch yet. All you're going to practice is hex. And there's a couple different things you can do with this. You can do a drill called walk the ring, and you're going to stay in your hex boxing stance. And as a beginner, I would encourage you to do 3 rounds of that. Then I would also say to do another 3 rounds of shadow boxing in your hex boxing stance. And you're just moving around the ring, right? And you're just working. But you're not really even punching yet. We're not even two punching. We got to learn how to stand first. Got to learn our basic stance. This is a basic, simple stance, hex boxing stance. And hex is not something you're going to find anywhere else. I made this up. When I started training fighters, my first fighter was Joe Perez. He's a 3-time national champion now. He's a professional prospect fighting now. I think he's got about 14, 15 fights now. But when we started, I needed a way to teach kids. I started with kids. He was 9 years old. And I ended up with a lot more kids. And so I'm actually a school teacher by profession. And I came up with the acronym to be able to teach this. It's a simple stance, but this hex boxing stance protects you. And some people would see it and say, oh, this is a version of Peekaboo by Customato. It is a altered version of that, but it was a simple way to teach it. It was a simple way to teach this. And there's some modifications to what Cuss taught, definitely a little bit different here. But this is just one basic stance. Now, we would adjust the hex boxing stance if we're fighting more of a boxer style. What I mean by boxer, if you look at the video on Spectrum of Styles, you'll see we have punchers on one end, boxers on the other, counter puncher in the middle. But along the spectrum, we all know how to counter punch. Punchers, the best punchers know how to counter punch. The best boxers know how to counter punch. So counter punching is also a skill set, not just a style. Okay? But there are some guys who stay in the pocket, and that's what they do as a style. But back to my point here is you're going to adjust depending on what range you're fighting. You're going to adjust your stance. If I'm wanting to keep you more at range, at the end of my range, okay, and I don't want to stay right in the pocket, mid-range, I want to keep you out, well, now I'm going to put my arms a little further away from me. I'm still in that boxer stance right here, right? I'm angled just like this. I got this shoulder back, and I'm here, I'm on my toes, but I'm going to put this hand up. And notice I'm looking right over my hand. I'm going to look right over it. If I drop it, this guy's open for a right hand all day long. I don't want that. I don't want you to be like that. I don't want you getting hit with the right hand. If you're fighting one of my guys, we're definitely going to capitalize on that, right? We're going to see that, and we're going to say, okay, he's open for a right hand. We know we're going to throw a lot of right hands today because it's not going to change. This is going to become a habit. And once it becomes a habit, that's just how you're going to fight. And a year from now, it's going to be really, 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 really hard to break that habit. So what we want is, if we're boxing, we want to keep that hand up where I'm looking over it, and we keep it out, right? And we got this hand to catch here, block here, right? And we're on our toes. That's more of a boxer stance as far as a style, okay? So hex, we're in mid-range, we're in the hex stance. We're coming forward, we're in the hex boxing stance. We're going to work outside or on the perimeter. Now we're more out here. Okay? The hand's got to be up. We look over the hand. Now, as a beginner, where are we going to look? We're going to look in the eyes. Okay? Now, there's some different trainers out there that are going to teach different things. I'm going to tell you why I teach my fighters what to look in the eyes. And there's a few reasons why. And I also want to tell you why some trainers will say, hey, don't teach looking in the eye. Virgil Hunter, who's a great trainer, highly respected trainer, one of the best trainers in the world. Someone asked him about, Virgil, why do you know that there's some trainers that teach to look in the eyes? And Virgil said, hey, I've never been hit by a man's eyeballs. And I agree with Virgil. I've never been hit myself with a man's eyeballs. But yet, I teach my fighters to look in the eyes, and I'm going to tell you why. A couple reasons. One, by looking in the eyes, automatically I have a higher focal point, right? So that's one reason. Now I use my peripheral. I can see your hands. I can see everything. I can see your feet. If I'm looking in your eye, I can still use my peripheral to catch everything else. Okay, and any motion, I'm looking there. But if I look lower, if I lower my focal point now, because of my eyelids, okay, and plus I have heavy eyelids, it makes it more difficult to see stuff coming in on the overhand right, or a hook coming up top. It makes it a split second later where I see that shot coming in. That split second is the difference between getting hit and not getting hit. But if I raise my focal point to your eyes, now there's nothing coming in that I can't see because I have a higher focal point. That's one reason. The other is psychological. When you see fighters come out and they stare down, they're trying to intimidate the other guy, right? They're looking into the eyes. It's been said that you can see a man's soul when you look into his eyeballs. Okay, so looking into his eyes or her eyes, you can see things. You can read them intuitively. You'll get to the point where you can read them, and it's a huge advantage. And I don't even know how to put it in words, but it's a huge advantage for you to train yourself early in your career to look in the eyes for the defensive aspect, because you're going to train your peripheral better to catch everything else. Okay. Now, looking in their eyes, you can see their soul. As I mentioned, you can see that. You can read them, right? You can feel them. And it's also intimidating. When you're walking by someone at a grocery store and you make eye contact, okay, you make eye contact, but what do? You kind of look away, right? You don't want to look them and keep looking in their eyes. They're going to think you're crazy, right? They're like, oh, this is a stalker. A stalker here. So you see that effect. You feel it all the time. When you first meet someone, yeah, you make a little eye contact, shake your hand, but you don't keep your eyes locked on them. Why? Because it becomes uncomfortable. But for you as a fighter who's trained from early on in your career, every time you get in front of someone, you're looking in their eyes. Well, you're very comfortable doing that. That's nothing to you. That's just where you look. That's just your focal point. You look right in their eyes. But for them, if they haven't trained themselves, they're going to be uncomfortable with this penetrating eye focus. They're going to want to look away. Okay, let them look away. That's when we're going to hit them. All right, but train yourself early. Look in the eyes. It's a huge advantage psychologically and visually. It enhances your peripheral vision to catch everything else. Some people may teach looking at the gloves. I don't agree with that, because one guy might keep his hand down here, the other hand up here. And if you're looking lower, well, those overhands, those hooks, those are going to be harder to see. So I disagree with that. Another spot, I have shifted my focus and have taught my fighters, sometimes you shift your focus to land a shot right on the chin, right on the button. And you'll have some magical effects when you do that, because it don't take a whole lot. If you land a shot right, you place it right with good timing and decent power, you'll make the lights flicker. You make the electricity. You ever have the lights go out in your house? Well, when someone gets knocked out, that's the lights going out. The electricity in their body shutting down. And so when you able to focus on the chin and land a shot right on the button, sometimes you make them flicker and they stumble for a second, and sometimes you turn the lights all the way out, and that's by knowing how to place shots right on the chin. Other times we're trying to place shots here, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but back to the basics. good eye contact, good basic stance. So work on Hex Boxing Stance, walk the ring. The other thing we want to do is we want to dance. So we're going to develop along the whole spectrum of styles from boxer to puncher, right? We want to develop along that entire spectrum. So the opposite side of the spectrum is to dance. So you're going to dance around the perimeter of the ring. When you do that, you're not going to cross your feet. You don't want to cross your feet as you move. You want to dance on your toes, and it's just like you're galloping. You're galloping, but as you turn, you're going to shift your body. Keep that boxer stance. Keep that angle, right? So practice dancing, going left, going right. One of the best places to do this, if you have access to a basketball court, is on the three-point line. Now, the three-point line is going to be a much faster surface. It's a wood surface. It's faster. But when you first get started, it's a great spot to go back and forth, left to right, and get comfortable dancing back and forth. If not, in a big open area, go in a full circle and then switch and go the other direction. Do 3 rounds of that. You got 3 rounds of walking the ring. You got 3 rounds of dancing, right? And then the next thing would be shadow boxing, but in your stance and practice. When you shadow box, imagine a fighter in front of you. So you're going to practice whether they're mid-range, whether you're coming forward, that's when we're in the Hex Boxing Stance. Whether we're out and we're boxing, that's when our hands are up more higher, right? That's more of a boxer stance. So practice shifting and noticing where that imaginary opponent is as you shadow box. And you're not even throwing punches yet. All we're doing is learning footwork, stance, hand positioning. That's it. That's the basics we want to start with. Now, the first punch you need to learn, and the only one I want you to focus on for the next 6 weeks, is a jab. And really, we could go 6 months on a jab. It just depends on how masterful you become at this. But focus on the jab, just the jab. There's many different ways to throw the jab, and there's different reasons why we throw the jab this way. But the very first jab I want to teach you is to jab off the back leg, because it's going to teach you your true boxing range. A lot of guys think they need to be this close to hit someone. No. Or this close. No. If you punch off the back leg and you push off that back leg, boom. That's my range, the end of that shot. I started right here. I ended right here. That's my true boxing range. So now, if anybody gets into that imaginary perimeter, guess what they get? A jab in the face. That's my true range. I don't need to be this close. I don't need to be an arm's distance away from you to hit you. I need to be a step away from you. Boop. That's my range. The other thing it does is it gives you a lot more authority on the jab because it's coming off the leg. It's a much bigger muscle group. So using that back leg, they're stronger muscles. I'm stepping in. I'm using momentum. I'm keeping you on the end of my jab. That's the basic jab, the first jab that you want to learn. Now, there's other jabs. We have a throwaway jab. We have a blinding jab where we're just going to blind our opponent and then hit him with something, right? Or we're going to throw the punch away and catch him with something that we don't even really care if we score. We have a double jab. We have an up jab. There's all kinds of different jabs and different variations that we can use and that you'll learn, but it's got to start with a basic textbook jab, and this is what I call a textbook jab off the back leg. It teaches you your true range. I wouldn't teach a beginner any other jab. This is the first jab you need to master, because if you learn a different type of jab, you're not going to know your range. And not knowing your range is going to get you hit. Okay, because you're going to think you're in a safe place and you're not. You must understand your range and how quick someone can close the gap on you and how quick you can close the gap on them. So this all goes together, but we're going to start with a basic textbook jab off the back leg and push off the back leg, step in, elbow down. You don't want to put that elbow out, throw power out there. You don't want to drop your hand right before you punch. You don't want to pull your shoulder before you punch. All those are little ways to telegraph, right? Just step in off that back leg, boom, boom, just like that. Right here, boom, off the back leg. And you want it to come out straight, a straight path right there. So in your Hex Boxing Stance, elbows in, boom, step in, land the shot, just like that, boom. Now, back to where we're going with this training program. We know how to do the Hex Boxing Stance. We're going to practice walking the ring, 3 rounds. We know how to dance. We're working the spectrum of styles, more of a boxer's stance. We're going to gallop. Basically, it's like a gallop. We're just dancing around the ring, right? We're just dancing, right? Just dancing, right? You're going to work that 3-point line if you have access to it. If not, get a circle or just some floor space. You can go around in a full circle, around the other way. But you want to get equally comfortable going both directions. Couple things not to do. You don't want to do this bowler sweep or this ninja walk, right? You don't want to cross your feet like that. Don't do that. You get hit when you're doing that. You're going to fall off balance. You don't want that, okay? Stay on your toes and keep when you go to the right, keep that right there. Yep, just like this. Now, the other thing, while you're doing that, look at your opponent. Look them in the eye. Look them in the eye. Watch them. Look them right in the eye. And the other thing I'm doing there is I'm shifting my weight. Where? On the balls of my feet. That goes back to Hex. Hands high, elbows in, chin down, knees bent, and shifting the weight on the balls of my feet. That's going to transfer into when we're boxing. We're still on the balls of our feet, and we're dancing. We're moving. Punches, the only punch we're going to work on for 6 weeks is a jab. Now, this takes tremendous discipline to develop, but I promise you, if you focus on these basics, the solid fundamentals, you're going to have a great foundation. My first fighter I mentioned, Joe Perez, when he was 9 years old, all we worked on was his jab. All we worked on was Hex Boxing Stance. All we worked on was footwork, learning how to use the perimeter of the ring when we need to. Now, this kid's jab got so textbook, really for the first year, there was a very, very, very heavy focus on his jab. Now, he learned other punches. He learned how to throw a right hand, how to throw a hook, how to throw uppercuts. But we really didn't focus a lot on the other punches as much. We focused on his jab for a full year. This kid's got one of the best jabs in boxing. He actually was sparring with a female fighter, Olympic bronze medalist Marlena Esparza. And he was just, he wasn't going real hard on her, but he kept touching her with the jab. And afterwards, she said she couldn't get away from his jab. She said usually she can see someone telegraphing in some way, right, where she's able to detect their jab coming in and slip it or get away. But his jab was so undetectable. And that's my theory there is jab control theory. I want to control the fight with my jab, and I teach that in a different program. But right here, I'll just share with you briefly. It's kind of like this. If there's bushes, and you're hiding in those bushes, and there's a person coming up the hill, and here's the bush, and now you want to scare them, right? Or you want to catch them, right? Well, if you shake the bushes first, they're going to notice that, right? They're already on guard. And then you jump out of the bushes, well, they're not as scared. You're not going to catch them, right? They're not as surprised. And it's the same thing when you're jabbing. If you have any type of telegraph before you go to punch, Well, if you drop your hand, if you bend your knees, if you do any type of telegraphing before you throw this jab, they're going to see that and they're going to know, oh, here comes a jab. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to parry it. I'm going to slip it. I'm going to block it, right? I'm going to pull from it. So they know that and they see that, so you're not going to hit them. But if your jab is so out of nowhere, boom, it just lands in their face, right? It's just here, boom, just right here. They can't see it, boom. It's in their face before they realize it. The other thing you'll notice is I'm not kicking my elbow out. That peripheral vision is highly trained in people. Depth perception is not. That's why we always have people rear-ending each other in the car. Their depth perception sucks. Okay, I've been rear-ended twice in the last 10 years. Okay, one time, both times actually, I was stopped at a red light. Okay, people's depth perception sucks. The other thing, there's a great chance they were on their cell phone. Well, obviously, if you're not looking where you're going, you're going to run into stuff. So don't do that, okay? But keeping that elbow down, when we kick that elbow out, that's allowing that peripheral vision to pick that up. And so they see that and they know, oh, here comes their jab. They're going to move their head. They're going to slip, right? Keep the elbow down. Extend the arm. It's at the end of the punch right there is where we rotate. Turn over. Actually, there's a great trainer from Mexico, Nacho Bernstein. He teaches to jab like this. And I think the theory behind that is he's trying to slip it in between their gloves, which kind of makes sense. But I still teach this. I still teach that one. I'm trying to catch you in the forehead, knock your head back, expose your chin, and land my two hand on your chin. And that's my focus there with that. So I teach it to rotate at the end of the shot. Nacho, he teaches this one. Okay, right in between. You could experiment, but I still favor this. That rotation at the end. Boom. This whole time, 6 weeks, focus. Footwork, working the perimeter ring. Hex boxing stance, walking the ring. Learn how to train your feet to walk the ring. Working on your jab. That's it. Focus on those 3 things. And you're going to have a solid foundation. The other thing, the 4th thing we mentioned, looking your opponent in the eye. So you can get in front of someone and shadow box in front of them. You're not even throwing punches at each other. You're just dancing. You're just working hex boxing stance and you're moving. They move left, you move left, right? They move right, you move right. Just move, move. They advance, you retreat. Okay? And actually better than retreating is to step out to the side. So they advance, dance out to the side, right? Make them turn towards you. You're going to do these basics, but train your eyes to look in the eyes, to use your peripheral to pick up any shots coming at you. If you do these basics for 6 weeks, along with the conditioning, I'll do another video of conditioning, of what you can do to start conditioning your body for boxing if you're a beginner. But if you do these basic fundamental skill development and you get some rounds in over the next 6 weeks, you're going to have a great solid foundation to build your skills upon. And you'll go far. Go slow now to go far later. So put the work in on the basic fundamentals of boxing, and I promise you it'll take you further than you could have ever imagined. You'll fulfill more of your potential than you would if you come in and we start teaching you how to throw a right hand, a left hook, an overhand, uppercuts, up jab, right? Throwaway jabs. We start teaching you all these different things. It's just going to ruin you as a fighter because you're going to develop really bad habits, and those habits are going to stay with you. And as you get better along the way, you're not going to be as good as you could have been had you started with solid, proper fundamentals of boxing. So put the work in and keep training like a champ.